podcast you've been looking for all along. Step into the life of urban exploration with guests from around the world. Welcome to No Tracers. Welcome back to the No Tracers podcast. My name is Kay. I'm your host on this show all about urban exploring. If you're new to the show, hit the subscribe button. If you've been listening for any amount of time and you like the show, please do me a favor and go to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and feedback at the bottom of the show. It helps us grow in the society and culture section of Apple Podcasts. If you do that, I will actually send you a signed photo print as a way of saying thank you for doing that and thank you for supporting the show. If you guys want to watch this episode, listen to it and see my guest photos at the same time, head to my new YouTube channel, No Tracers, and you can check out not only this podcast, but also my urban exploring videos. It's a new YouTube channel. I just launched it, so if you guys want to check out my stuff, please go over there and subscribe. This week on the podcast, I'm speaking with Ghost Urbex Japan. This guy is based in Japan, and his stories are absolutely bananas. Super excited to share them with you on this episode of No Tracers. Before we get into it, I need to thank our partner, Liquid Death Mountain Water. If you've never heard of them, don't worry, I've got an ad for you in 3, 2, 1. From the streams of the Austrian Alps comes a new kind of water. A water that is sure to raise you from your grave. If you're tired of buying cases of plastic water bottles that contain carcinogens and God knows what else, or if you're trying to lower your waste footprint, Liquid Death comes in beautifully rugged aluminum cans. Murder your thirst with a can of Liquid Death. Check the link in the description and use code JustTheLetterK at checkout for 10% off your order. Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. So if you guys want to give Liquid Death a try, it's not for the faint of heart, but you can check it out at liquiddeath.com. Use code JustTheLetterK for 10% off your order, and you can try Liquid Death today. Get a case, get 50 cases, you still get 10% off. All right, well, we got the police coming through, but without further ado, Ghost Urbex Japan, please introduce yourself and how long you've been exploring to the No Tracers audience.
My name is Ghost, commonly known in the Japanese community as Ghost Urbex Japan. I've been exploring, the short answer is basically 15 years, but my intro was when I was 19, back in my high school and college days. I studied photography. College professor, she was really big into urbex at that time. And she'd bring in some of her work and share it with the rest of the class. And it kind of piqued my curiosity seeing those strange and unusual places. So that was kind of my tip to getting started. But I didn't actually do a whole lot. I didn't have the community. I didn't have, back in that time frame, we didn't have good internet access for information. Maps and stuff wasn't available. If you wanted to find a place, you had to literally get out with a road map, get in your car, and just drive until you found something. The only other time you heard anything was if someone, like a friend, told you about a place. So anyway, skipping forward about 20 years, or not 20 years, but into 2000, when I moved, I started seeing stuff here over in Japan, Chernobyl, other places around the nation, or not just nation, but around the world. And, it kind of rekindled that interest in Haikyo exploration. Oh, by the way, in case you didn't know, Haikyo is a term used here in Japan for urban exploration. So, but anyways, just started getting an interest back into urbex. Jump a little bit farther ahead, I ended up moving to Japan. And so from that point, I had a lot of free time, and I just started going out and exploring.
Man, it's awesome to hear that you got so into it and so into like the community over there that you ended up relocating. You know, not a lot of people from America do that. You know, it takes a big step and a lot of courage to step outside your comfort zone and move to another country. And I grew up in the Middle East. My father relocated us when I was 16 to Abu Dhabi. So I grew up there, studied film in Dubai, and then moved to Australia for a year. And now I'm in California. And, you know, I love traveling and I love getting to go around the world and visit some of these amazing places. I've been to Portugal and I've been to, you know, I just got home from the UK, actually. I was on tour with a band over there, and it's so cool to be able to travel and visit these places. For you, what was it about Japan that made you want to go there out of all the places in the world?
For Japan, I had already been traveling to and from the States to Japan, and I had done some work back in the States that had also sent me to Japan periodically. But at the time when I was still in the States, I was doing graphic work, and we had the economy bubble burst, and I didn't know where to go. Graphic work at the time seemed kind of sparse. My company was actually closing its doors at the time, and so I was like, all right, well, I have family over here. Why don't I go and see what it's like over there? I've always been kind of curious, and so I just packed up my things and moved over here one day. So,
wow.
But that's pretty cool that you also have done a lot of traveling, and that you said you're from the Middle East. So, yeah, I find that actually pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, so I'm from Oklahoma originally, but we like I said, we relocated when I was 16 to the Middle East, and it was definitely an interesting time in my life. You know, my pivotal developmental years were spent in a different culture altogether, and I wasn't too into exploring then, but as I am now. And I kind of wish I had done more exploring back then of abandoned places, but it was a little bit more, I guess, like sketchy to like go out on your own to like find that kind of stuff over there. But
yeah,
it was definitely cool. And I've had an Egyptian explorer on the podcast called Pimp My Camel, and he's from Egypt, and he's done a lot of urban exploring in the Middle East, and he's got some crazy stories about like finding skulls and different like places around there, and like it's definitely an interesting episode. So people listening, if you guys want to check that one out, definitely go listen to it. For you, like when you moved to Japan, did you jump straight into like exploring abandoned stuff there, or did you kind of like settle down a little bit and find a community there?
I kind of, when I got over here, I wasn't actually thinking really hard on exploring. At the time back in the States, I'd actually kind of tapered off quite a bit. But when I got over here, I found that I had a horrendous amount of free time. And seriously, and I just, I was like, I got to find something to do. I can't be just going out drinking every night and doing this and that. And I started off, I got myself another camera, and I started going out. Started doing just street photography and stuff like that, and picking up the odd job eventually. And then finally, I started, the Haikyo images started cropping up, and one particular happened to show up. I don't know if you've heard of the Green Room. It's the Maya Hotel. So all of a sudden this image popped up one day on Instagram, and I was just like, oh, hey, I remember this photo. And I decided to start checking it out and researching it. And turns out it's over in Kobe. And I was like, oh, I really want to go here. I really want to go here. But I didn't really at the time have the knowledge for getting around, and moving around Japan is kind of difficult if you don't have a driver's license. You're limited by your language ability and just pure transportation. So I tried to stay kind of local within where I live. I'm in the Yokohama, Tokyo area. And so I started doing small places within an hour's train ride from where I reside. And but as the years have gone on, I started branching out. And I started learning about the rest of the community, but actually reaching out and connecting with them, I didn't really meet up with anyone for at least 3-4 years later.
Yeah, I think that's interesting to hear about, like, your process of getting into the local community there. And I was kind of the same way when I moved back to America and came to California. I didn't really know how to get into it or like where any of these places were. And it was right before, or like right when Instagram was really popping off with the urban exploring stuff. And I happened to go to a photography meetup in Los Angeles, and somehow we got on the topic of abandoned places. And this guy was like, hey, I know an abandoned, it used to be like a police training center or something like that. And he was like, I can take you there. So I went to that. That was my first one in California. And then it kind of just exploded from there. And I got in with the community, and it took me a couple years, kind of similar to your story, to actually get in with the community and start exploring with different people. But I think it's so fascinating that you're basically on the other side of the world, and there's a community there. It just goes to show you that urban exploring is something that is worldwide, and it's not just like in one little small area. Like, this community is vast, and I think that's one of my favorite things about this podcast is that I can connect with people like yourself that live on the other side of the world, that are doing the same thing that I'm doing and have the same interests. For you, like, when did the photography come into play? You had mentioned you did like street photography when you first got over there, but when did you pick up a camera for the first time in your life, and what made you kind of connect with photography? I know you said you studied it a little in high school.
I'd say about the age of 14 is when I first had my little point and shoot. It was this little red plastic camera. You popped your film in and you just ran around clicking at it. I must sound like a fossil. But that was kind of the start. And over the years, I just kind of kept at it. My godfather, he was also into photography, and every once in a while he'd share stuff from his dark room, and eventually I just kind of went from there. And it's always been kind of this side passion of mine, and now it's a full-time thing.
Oh, that's awesome. I love the power of photography and the passion people have for it. I think it's so special. For you, do you have recommendations for people that are getting into the hobby as far as gear goes? So like maybe the backpack you use, or the pair of shoes on your feet, a light, anything like that?
For camera gear itself, my best suggestion is go with whatever's most comfortable for you. Nothing's worse than picking up a camera and you can't figure out how to even like get through the menus or whatever, especially nowadays. For haikyuu gear, it's all your basics. I mean, you don't want to go into these buildings wearing tennis shoes and no mask and whatnot, and no gloves. You want to make sure you have your gloves. You want some good boots. A respirator on hand, at least a basic mask to cover your mouth with. Too many things can happen in some of these places. One of the places I was at over the summer, I was down in Kyushu at this church. And it's not just a church, it's more like a resort wedding facility. It was kind of huge, actually. And I'd already been through part of the building, and I had gotten up into this upper level of the building. It was partially outdoor, partially indoor. And I'm making my way through this outdoor hallway, and I see one of the wedding hall rooms. And I see there's a bed in there and a couple of chairs, and I'm just about ready to walk in. And I realized there's no floor. And it just happened, I had my torch on me, and I was pointing it straight down. There was no floor in, like, you could see the carpet, but right at the entrance where the door was open, there was nothing. And I looked down, and it's a good solid two-story drop.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, oh, that would have been a nasty little drop. Had I not had my torch on me, I probably would have gone straight down. So,
wow.
No, you just want to make sure you're properly prepared and aware when you're going into these places. So,
definitely. And do you have a preference on exploring alone or with people?
I know everyone says you should go with somebody, but I have to say my preference is by myself. There's so many different things for going with someone. You're constantly kind of wondering what they're doing, where they are, how they're doing, if something's happened to them. If you get if you go with someone who's you're not really familiar with, and they turn out being some vandal, or they're just I gotta think of the English. I'm wanting to say KY. They just kind of they're doing their own thing, like they don't care, smashing things, waving their torches around. It really can be distracting for your own experience when you're there. Plus, when I'm out exploring, I think I'm on the insane side for the amount of what I do. Just last weekend, I went to a clinic, took the last train out, arrived at the station at about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, walked to the clinic, and stayed in the clinic shooting all through the night and into the middle of the afternoon the next day.
Wow.
And I think for most people, just going into the clinic in the middle of the night, they can't handle. And so it's kind of like, my world of exploring and enjoying what I'm doing is very different from a lot of other explorers. Well, not explorers, just other people in general, I suppose. I can't speak for other explorers.
What's the longest amount of time you've spent in a place?
In a single building, I would have to say 16, 17 hours, maybe 18.
Oh my God. Wow.
It's actually a kind of a local place for me. Very, very well known. And it, for a while, had the nickname of being the Fort Knox of Urbex within Japan. The reason being is the outside has 2 layers of fencing. There's the main fence, which stands at least, I'd say, 8 feet tall with barbed wire all the way around. There is a gate with CCTV directly on it. And once you get past that, there's a really tall, white, flat metal barricade that's at least 10, 12 feet tall. And that's just for getting in. I'm not even talking about the other stuff that's around there. On the back side is a military installation, a U.S. military base. And it's literally their back wall. Like, there's the fence, and there's where everyone is driving around and walking and stuff. And they got patrols going through and whatnot. And it's just, it's like, okay, I'm going to try and get in this place. on the front side, it is a public park, and we're talking completely open area. And during the daytime, it is busy. I mean, it is so busy. So you have to go in the middle of the night. And, you got this military base with their bright lights going, and their military doing patrols. You have the local park doing patrols because, the military base is there. And, you got to get through this fence with barbed wire on the top. You got to get over this 10-foot barricade to get into this building. And then once you're in, you're there. You can't go anywhere. You don't have a choice. Once you're in for until the next night when it's dark and you try to make your exit. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Wow. I think you might be a crazy person, and I love that. I admire the courage you have to do this, especially by yourself, especially things like that. Like, I've been to an abandoned jail where it was kind of similar, like a 10-foot barbed wire fence, had to get over it, drop down to the train tracks and make your escape. And it was crazy. It was a crazy experience. And, we filmed the whole thing, of course, but it's stuff like that makes me really appreciate this community and the people that do this. Can you talk more about the mentality of urban exploring? Like, what do you get out of this? Why do you do this so much?
I really enjoy recording these places. It sounds really weird or corny. I think of it as kind of like exploring like ancient Egypt or Machu Picchu or, all these old ancient places. I think of us as modern day versions of the people who used to explore those type of places. And so, I want to get in there. I want to record and see what the lives were like of people or the people, workers, whatever, who worked in these places, who lived in these places, and then here's a good one for you. Chernobyl. Now, I don't know how old you are, but I was about 13 or 14, and I already had a sense of like Egypt, pyramids, and, all these other places. And it had already been a point in my mind of like, how did it become empty? Why aren't there people still living there? And then, of course, it's not going to be exactly the same, but as Chernobyl, but some type of massive, disaster of some sort took place. In this case, for like Egypt or Machu Picchu, probably plague or something else. But for, Chernobyl, seeing on the news, the meltdown and hearing about it, and then it kind of clicked as a young child. It clicked in my mind, and then coming back years later, and then those like new images resurfacing, talking about Chernobyl and stuff. It really, made me want to visit and record these people's past lives. So.
Man, and so Chernobyl, the disaster happened before I was born. I was born in 93, and it happened in what, 86?
86, I believe so. Yeah, 86.
So like you watched that happen on TV? Like you watched the whole disaster take place? Wow. And so like, what was it like to visit and see it after the fact, after like growing up seeing it on TV?
I haven't actually had the chance of exploring outside of Japan or the west coast of the U.S.
Gotcha.
But seeing the images, it kind of brought me back to, what I'd seen as a child, and seeing these images again. It really kind of like just made me take a step back for a second and realize, wow, this place, when just a few years ago, used to have all these people living there, and now there's nothing. And it's, for most, it might seem a long time. But for me, since, I was actually alive and knew what was going on when it took place, and then to see it again, it really kind of painted an interesting picture of, how this situation might actually occur. So.
Right. Yeah, I have a friend who's a filmmaker, and he got to go to Chernobyl to film a documentary for like BBC or some network. And so if you do ever want to go there, he has a guy that brought him in there, and I can definitely pass on his information to you if you ever want to get out there and go check it out.
That'd be awesome.
He stayed there in the grounds for like a week, like right down the hallway from where like the scientists were quarantined at, and the stories this guy told me were absolutely crazy. And so if you ever want to get over there, let me know. But for you, what was your scariest exploration experience?
Scariest? That's kind of a tough one, because for me, when I'm getting into these places, I think the fear or like that aspect doesn't really pop up with me. I tend to feel really calm inside these places. I just focus on my photography. So, but not in Japan. Back in the States, I think I'm sure you've heard of the Vance Creek Bridge.
I have, yes.
So that's back in my home state. If you've ever gone there, this is just playing with normal fear of like heights. I climbed up on this 2-3 story concrete pillar to get up onto the top of the train tracks, and then you had this. I'm guessing maybe 20, 30, 40 feet of no crossbar track rail. Like just the main support rails. You had to cross this to get to the actual first wooden planks where you actually have some sort of floor. And of course, as you're going out, and for anyone who doesn't know about the Vance Creek Bridge, we're talking, it is this Washington State's second tallest bridge. We're talking I think it's like 100, I can't even think, meters, feet. Anyways,
it's like 106.
Really, yeah, it's like really freaking tall. And by the time you get to those first planks, you have to be like 5, 6, 7, 8 stories up. And I'm just like, I'm shitting bullets like you wouldn't believe. I'm like, I don't normally get nervous or scared. Heights don't usually faze me. I was just climbing buildings the other day, and it doesn't bother me usually. I was scared shitless. I kid you not. I'm like crossing this thing. I'm like praying to God, please, no strong wind, no strong wind. The metal bars are slightly wet because it had rained earlier in the morning. And I'm thinking, please don't slip, no breeze, I make my way across onto this thing, and I took my photos, and then. I eventually got the courage to go back across and get back, and I'm like driving back to my place out in Westport, and I'm just like, oh my God, I think I'm going to be sick right now. It was the first time I could honestly say I had a serious adrenaline rush, because usually I don't. I might get a little bit spooked if I'm worrying about, like, say, the police or something like that, but for the most part, being in a place, I don't get scared. I might get a little bit surprised seeing a wild animal. I've run across bears, boars, deers, you name it, here. But yeah, I usually don't get too startled. But that one particular time did kind of freak me out a little bit.
Wow, man. Yeah, that's up in like the Satsop area. And have you ever been to the
power
Satsop
plant?
Nuclear plant?
Yeah, I've been up there. So I drive up there, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to try and enter the actual plant itself. I was there for the holidays visiting family, and but I drove out, and I got out there, and it's really, really foggy that day, and I'm just trying to catch some of the externals of the buildings, and by the way, it is still partially active. They run tours in that place, but so I'm sitting there, I'm taking photographs, and car rolls up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I'm taking pictures. Is that okay?" He's like, "Okay, just don't be going in." I'm like, "No problem." Big, huge fence anyways. But they were watching me from the point that I got into the general area. Maybe some CCTV somewhere in the outer area. But yeah, because I wasn't there more than a half a minute before someone rolled up asking me questions.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So this band I'm friends with, they rented it out to film 2 music videos in there.
Oh, sweet.
And they called me up one day, and they were like, "Hey, so we know you're into like urban exploring and abandoned stuff. Do you want to come out here and film behind the scenes for us and like explore this place for 2 days?" And I was like, Sorry, what?
You should have taken him up on it.
I did.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I spent 2 days walking around this place. I got to go into the cooling tower. I got to climb on a crane. Dude, it was
total jealousy
insane.
right now.
Oh my
Total
God,
jealousy.
it was the coolest. I flew my drone around that place. Oh my God, it was one of the coolest explores I've ever done. And like to be allowed to be in there was like next level, you know? There's nothing like that.
I know. Growing up, so my grandfather had a house out in Westport, not far from there. And so whenever I'd go out to visit him, I would always see that cooling tower. And it was, as a child, I was always curious and kind of freaked out by it, but I always kind of wanted to go. And, you know, I keep meaning to do it and probably go the route that you went, basically.
Right.
Because it's not hard to pay to have access into that place, but it's just kind of like, am I really doing an Urbex Explorer, or am I just like on a tour? But still, I mean, that's a pretty freaking cool place to go to. Yeah. Of
all the places you can pay to get into, that's definitely one you should do, for sure. You can pay to like climb the stairs to the cooling tower to the very top of it. Yeah. That's something I wish I had been able to do while I was there, but I'll go back and do it one day. But it's crazy because now anytime I see cooling towers, it brings me back to that time when I was there. And I, like I said earlier, I just got back from the UK and we were driving through the countryside and there was like this whole nuclear facility and they had like, I don't know, like 8 cooling towers that were all running at the same time. And I was like, this is insane. Like, I've been in one of those. Like, to think about that, like, the power that those things push out is just insane. So for you, can you tell me about your most dangerous exploration? I know you mentioned the one where there was no floor, but do you have like another one that's like dangerous or risky?
Let's see. Dangerous. Let me think. I'm so cautious. Ikeshima. So there's a number of like mining facilities in this place. And I was out there with a buddy of mine originally I was trying to get to Gunkanjima, but weather killed it again for me. Went over to Ikeshima instead, did a hospital and was doing some of the mining facilities. And going through the inside, you would think it's not too bad. I got into one particular building, a huge facility. And my buddy, he's constantly pointing out bad floor. And they look like regular sheets of metal, nice, strong, sturdy metal, but in reality, all rusted out. Like one good footstep down and you're going to be somewhere else, definitely. If not that, you're at least going to slash up your leg from the metal. And we had gone through that place. In the basement area of the place, it's actually a pretty cool location. It's a huge onsen. And if you're not, onsen is a type of bathhouse. And there's a men's and a women's. And the men's had to been, just like the size of your school gym. There had to have been like for bathing, like showering stations, like sit down showering stations, there had to have been like 100 of them. And there's these 2 gigantic, like pool size bathing onsens. And I was just like floored by it. And the women's not nearly as big, but still it was good sized as well. Again, through most of that place, pitch black. Couldn't see anything in the lower levels, but yeah, getting down there, it was a maze of just busted up metal that, if you weren't careful, pieces, huge sections of rusted out metal would fall sometimes from above. Wow. In another place, not far from there, my buddy was telling me 8 different people died, not from necessarily being in the wrong, well, yeah, they're in the wrong place, all right. But not like from climbing and doing things that would seem risky, right? They were just walking along and whole entire staircase collapses type deal.
Oh my God.
Or a guy is walking and apparently some big, huge metal generator or capacitor fell from above and crushed the guy.
Wow.
And, yeah.
Oh my God.
So the place that I was in was not that place, but similar things have happened in that place as well. So
Sure.
I'd have to say that would be one of the more sketchier places, but
For sure. And we talked about on Instagram about Battleship Island. I would love to hear your experience there.
Gunkanjima. Everyone calls it Battleship Island. I'm not used to that. Gunkanjima. Sadly, I've made a number of attempts, and they've all been thwarted. I've never been on. My last attempt was this past summer. I was met with 3 typhoons. Typhoons are really strong or like a smaller version of a hurricane. I was in the Kyushu area for a full week. In Saga and Fukuoka, I was dealing with flooding. I'm like driving around. I'm like, I can't go this way. My car's in a foot of water, so redirect and go somewhere else. But yeah, I've been out to Nagasaki several times, only to be turned around due to various complications. There was a point where a couple of people had caused problems for the foreign community, lighting off fireworks or art projects that shouldn't have been put up on Gunkanjima, and it destroyed it for the foreign community. If you want to get over there through one of the local boat captains, you have to have a Japanese guide. And so there are tours, or at least were tours. I don't know if they've tried starting them back up again. They closed them down due to asbestos, and that gives you about a 2% view of the entire island.
Right. Yeah. I was on tour with this band in the UK, and my friend Jake, who's the vocalist of the band, he's been out there on one of the tours, and he was like, yeah, I've actually been there, but I literally like got off the boat, walked like 100 meters, and then walked back to the boat, and that's it. That's all you get to see. And I was like, what? That's not even a tour. You just like step on the island for a second and then go back. It's so crazy, but
it's pretty sad.
I've heard a lot about that place, and I would love to visit it someday, but definitely, like, out of respect, I would for sure bring a guide that is Japanese with me, because I know that culturally they are very like protective of their country and their place, and I always want to be respectful of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Back in the day, though, probably when I first started exploring here, you could actually, as a foreigner, speak with one of the boat captains to get out onto the island. And there have been a number of foreigners that have been able to actually stay the night and just be there. I'm always envious of some of those guys, but yeah, one of these days I'll make it.
Oh, for sure.
My next attempt's this, what?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say my next attempt is hopefully this spring. So we'll see how that goes.
I hope you make it out. I hope you make it, man. That would be super cool to see the content you make from that. And speaking of content, can you talk about social media and what that's done for you as an urban explorer, as a photographer, and if you've been able to like meet up with people through things like Instagram?
So when I first got into exploring here in Japan, I did get set up on Facebook with a part of the Japanese community. I was one of the moderators of this Haikyo Exploring page, and it's how I met a couple of my current friends today, who are good guys. Though at that time, I had never gone exploring with any of them. It's just been kind of maintaining a community friendship. But more recently, I've actually gone out exploring with a couple of guys that I've met through that page. That page is long gone now. Instagram now seems to flow in waves. Newer generation explorers come up, and I don't know how they're doing it over here, but they're picking apart the sites. They're finding them so quickly. The newer explorers. When I first got into it, there was one particular site that gave a good amount of information and helped serious explorers find those different sites. And the most secretive places were always kept secret, of course, but it helped to let me get out to see more places more quickly. Instagram and the internet as a whole, I think, has made a huge impact on how quickly people can find places. When I first started exploring, like I said, you would have to get in your car, take a map. Maybe a friend would tell you about some building he saw, and you'd just go, and you would spend all day just driving around looking for maybe a place, and just aimlessly wandering around with no, seriously, it's terrible. Now you got Google, right? I spend hours and hours peering through communities all day, all night long, just going through and, oh, here's a spot. This looks really good. Oh, here's a spot. This looks good. What's this? Drop down into the street view and, oh, hey, I think I got something. And, I don't even have to go anywhere. I can do it from here. And so, just that alone has made exploring and finding these different places so much easier. And then the community has, for me, I've been pretty much to myself. I do know other people within the community. I have gone out exploring with others or met others while exploring. And using Instagram has made it a little bit easier to connect with the local community. There was a theater I had gone to not long ago with a couple of buddies of mine. And so we get to this place, we see another car there. And I'm like, oh, he's local. He's from my area, guys. And they're like, oh, okay. And we get into the place, and this Japanese guy, he's, I intentionally beeline it to try and find him, let him know that we're there, because I don't want him freaking out or anything. Or if it's some guy causing trouble, I don't want to be involved in it, right? So I quickly find the guy, and I try talking to him, and he's like, no, I don't want to deal with you. I don't know who you are. And, I was like, well, I'm here with two other guys. And he actually got he got really scared, actually. And he was starting to make his way out. And I was like, hey, here's my business card with my Instagram account. My name's Ghost. And he quickly checked it out. And he was like, oh, hey, I know you. You're this guy, right? And I was like, yeah, that's me. And then he shared his Insta with me. And it made things much quicker, much easier for breaking down the general barrier. And I asked him, because he had told me he was with one other guy. He was like, oh, no. I thought you guys might be here to rob me or vandalize the place. I didn't know. I got scared. I said, oh, okay. No, I understand. And so, having that, really quick, easy connection with other explorers, it's definitely an advantage.
Oh, for sure. And, I don't blame the guy for being scared. 3 dudes to 1 dude like that. Yeah, that can be scary in an abandoned place. But it's cool how Instagram kind of brings us together. And what do you hope for the future of urban exploring?
A better sense of protecting the places. When I first got into exploring here in Japan, I could go to a place and it would be noticeably untouched. I would honestly feel like I was the first person to have walked into a place since whoever owned it prior passed away or it had become abandoned. It's quickly changing, though. I'd say the last 5-10 years, it's been 10 years ago, I might find a little bit of graffiti. The last 2 to 5 years, I'm seeing, I think the term is scrappers. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I've been seeing scrapping activities, people going in and stripping out tatami mats and other things, people going into places and stealing stuff, blatant graffiti and vandalism. It's kind of unfortunate, and it's almost becoming a little bit touristy even. A place that I nicknamed the Grandmother's Clinic. This little clinic had a house and a clinic attached out in the middle of nowhere. Went there, everything pristine, medicine bottles still in the cabinets, files still on the filing racks, the bed sheets on the medical bed, or I don't know, medical, kind of like a medical bed. Anyways, the sheets still there. No indentations, no ripples, just dust collecting on it. And amazing. I mean, if you go into a place and you see this, you're just like, you're floored. Mm-hmm. And after a while, the rumor got out that they were going to demolish it. And yeah, that was somewhat true. Not completely. The owner eventually had it stripped clean. But what was really happening was so many people were going to this place, both good explorers, bad explorers, I don't know, but so many people were going to this place and not really showing any kind of respect for the local neighbors, not being quiet about it, or, I just don't know. But they stripped it out. I learned about it, like, say, at one point, and within 2 years, they decided to completely empty it out and not even bother with people. Fortunately, I think the owners now lease it to movie studios within Japan so that the architecture can still be used, which is fortunate. That's cool. But
yeah, that's cool.
All the actual history and the people's lives that were there is now gone, which is really sad.
Yeah, definitely. And if you could live in one place you've explored for an entire week, which one would it be?
An entire week?
Yeah.
Gee, that's a tough one. Maybe the Oriental. It's this huge hotel out on the island, and it's pretty surreal. One side of the building completely decayed and moldy. Right across the hallway, pristine and clean. I don't know if it would last me an entire week. I know it lasted me 2 days there. But there are other portions of the hotel that I only spend a little bit of time in. So having more time to explore there, I think that would be a lot of fun. Otherwise, for places I haven't explored yet, would be Gunkanjima on top. I could
for sure.
be there a week, no problem.
As long as there's no typhoons.
Yeah. I heard one guy stayed through a typhoon in that place and got some awesome photos.
Wow.
Like
I gotta
massive
find that guy and
waves.
have him on the show.
Massive waves blowing up over the top.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I gotta have that person on the show to hear that story. That's gotta be nuts.
Yeah, I should look up that photo and see if I can find it again. But yeah,
Yeah, I would love to see it.
I can guess, but who it might be. But yeah. Anyways.
So my last question for you is, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started exploring?
Be patient. Sounds a little cheesy, but be patient. Be patient going in, getting out. Don't be in a rush. If you're rushing to get around or get into places, something bad's going to happen every single time.
Oh yeah.
Is kind of the simple fact. My buddy, it was funny. We're trying to get into an amusement park. You might have heard of it. It's called Western Mura. It's a Western Village amusement park. And,
oh yeah.
Yeah. This guy, my buddy, a good guy and good photographer. We get to the front of this amusement park and he's already trying to crawl underneath one of the fence gates. Like this big, huge wooden pull open door gate. And yeah, there was a good maybe foot crack underneath this gate. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm getting in. And I'm like, door's open over here. Same day, a little bit later on, he's thinking about passing through this really sketchy window, like huge, really thick glass, sheets of glass, and it's busted and it looks like it's ready to like fall. And he's like, I'm going to go through this. And I'm like, I spent just a couple more seconds, walked around the backside. Hey, there's an open window over here. Much easier. Let's do that. So, I mean, there's always, time. Take your time. If you really want to get into a place, time is your best friend. And, same for like if the place is like locked up. If you're having to bust a door down, you should be turning away. It's not the right time. Someone else will do it for you anyways. You just got to be patient.
Exactly.
And come back. So
yeah, definitely. And if people want to keep following your journey, where can they find you online? Let everyone know your Instagram, your social media.
My Instagram is ghost.urbex.japan. That's my main source. I am on Twitter, but I don't use it a lot. Maybe if I had a bigger Western community, I probably would. Everything's always in Japanese from the Japanese community. So, but yeah, same thing. Just ghost.urbex.japan on Twitter. So anyways, yeah, thank you.
All right, that was Ghost Urbex Japan. If you guys want to check out his stuff, I've put his links down in the description for you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the No Tracers podcast. If you want to come on the show, please reach out to me at no.tracers on Instagram, or you can email me at contact@notracers.com. If you guys want to pick up a photo book or a duffel bag or anything like that, head to justtheletterk.com/notracers. You can pick something up. Otherwise, subscribe to the new YouTube channel, No Tracers, and I will talk to you guys next week for another one. Stay strong, keep enduring, go out, go explore something, and remember, leave no trace.